The price of truth. The crystalline spires of New Alexandria's Xenoarchaeology Institute gleamed in the twin sunset of Kepler 186f. Dr. Rhiannon Vale stood at her office window, her dark fingers tracing patterns on the transparent aluminum as she contemplated the ruins that had consumed the last 3 years of her life. The alien structure lay half buried in the rust-colored sand, its obsidian surfaces still reflecting light after 50,000 years of abandonment. "You should have left it buried," came a soft voice behind her. Rhiannon turned to face her research partner, a Proximian named Thorix. His iridescent scales shifted from deep blue to concerned purple as he approached. "The Conclave's enforcers are already in the system. They know what you found." Rhiannon's jaw tightened. "They've been lying to us, Thorix. To all of humanity. These ruins prove it." She gestured to the holographic display floating above her desk, showing complex mechanical diagrams that seemed impossibly advanced for their age. Whoever built this place, they were helping early humans develop faster-than-light travel. 10,000 years before we supposedly earned the right to join the galactic community. Thorix's tail twitched nervously. "The Stellar Conclave has strict rules about technological development rules they invented to keep younger species under control," Rhiannon interrupted. "We've found evidence of their interference across 20 colonial sites now. They didn't protect humanity from developing too quickly, they actively suppressed our growth." She walked to her desk and picked up a small artifact, a twisted piece of metal and crystal that hummed faintly in her palm. "This isn't just history, Thorix. These sites contain working technology. Technology that could revolutionize human development, free us from depending on Conclave guidance. Which is exactly why they'll kill you for discovering it." Thorix moved closer, his voice dropping to a whisper. "Please, Rhiannon. Destroy the evidence. Claim it was all a mistake. You're not just my research partner, you're my friend. I don't want to see you disappear into a Conclave detention center." Rhiannon smiled sadly and placed a hand on his scaled shoulder. "You've been a true friend, Thorix. That's why I made sure none of this can be traced back to you. But humanity deserves the truth. And if the Conclave wants to silence me..." She patted the small neural transmitter hidden behind her ear. "Well, let's just say I've made arrangements for everything I've discovered to reach the right people." The air suddenly hummed with static electricity. Both scientists turned as a section of the office wall shimmered and dissolved, revealing a squad of heavily armed figures. Their armor was unmarked, but Rhiannon recognized the distinctive crystalline weapons of Conclave enforcers. Dr. Vale, the lead enforcer's synthesized voice was coldly formal. "You are charged with violating Article 7 of the Species Development Accord. You will come with us for immediate judgment." Rhiannon straightened her spine, hands raised slowly. "Thorix, whatever happens, remember what I taught you about human history. About why we tell stories of people who stood up for the truth, no matter the cost." The enforcers surrounded her, energy cuffs snapping around her wrists. As they led her away, she caught one last glimpse of Thorix. His scales had shifted to the deep green of morning. The journey to the Conclave's mobile judgment chamber was brief and silent. Rhiannon spent it reviewing her life's work in her mind, ensuring every discovery, every piece of evidence was properly backed up and formatted in the neural transmitter. The trigger was simple: her death would activate the broadcast to every human colony and research station in range. The judgment chamber was a vast sphere of shifting dark energy, populated by the holographic avatars of 9 Conclave High Judges. Their forms were deliberately obscured, voices distorted, species and identities hidden behind layers of protocol and paranoia. Dr. Rhiannon Vale, the central avatar's voice reverberated through her bones. "You stand accused of gravely violating the natural development of your species. How do you plead?" Rhiannon lifted her chin. "I plead that you are the ones who violated humanity's natural development. My evidence proves that you've been systematically suppressing human technological growth for millennia. You're not protectors, you're jailers. Murmurs rippled through the assembled avatars. The central judge's form flickered with what might have been anger. You were warned multiple times to cease your investigations. The sites you studied were clearly marked as restricted. Your persistence has forced our hand. Restricted because they reveal your lies? Rhiannon's voice rang out clear and strong. How many other species have you guided this way? How many civilizations have you kept dependent on your technology, your laws, your control? Enough. The word fell like a hammer blow. You have confirmed your guilt through your own words. The sentence is death. Let it be recorded that humanity was warned, through your example, of the price of defiance. Rhiannon felt no fear as the dark energy of the chamber began to coalesce around her. Her only regret was that she wouldn't live to see the changes her discoveries would bring. The energy field constricted, every atom of her body screaming in protest as it was systematically torn apart. Her last conscious thought was a quote from her favorite ancient Earth historian: "The truth is like a lion. You don't have to defend it. Let it loose and it will defend itself." The pain peaked, her vision whited out, and Dr. Rhiannon Vale ceased to exist. For exactly 43 minutes. The first sign that something had gone wrong was a fluctuation in the chamber's energy field. The high judges, preparing to conclude the session, paused as their instruments registered an impossible power spike emanating from the space where Rhiannon's atoms had been scattered. Light bloomed in the darkness, a spiral of golden energy that spun faster and faster, drawing scattered particles back together. The judges watched in stunned silence as a human form took shape within the light, flesh and bone reconstructing themselves from pure energy. Rhiannon Vale opened her eyes, now glowing with the same golden light that had restored her. She took a deep, shuddering breath and looked up at the assembled avatars with an expression of wonder and fierce joy. "Well," she said, her voice echoing with new harmonics, "that's interesting." The central judge's avatar flickered rapidly. Impossible. The dissolution was complete. No species has ever survived? Rhiannon flexed her restored hands, watching golden energy dance between her fingers. Maybe you don't know as much about humanity's potential as you thought you did. And now? She smiled as she felt the neural transmitter behind her ear activate, broadcasting everything that had just happened along with her cached data. Now everyone will know what you tried to hide. The chamber erupted in chaos as alarms blared and emergency protocols activated. But Rhiannon Vale stood calmly in the center of the storm, reborn and unbowed, ready to see just how far humanity could rise once the truth was finally set free. Defiance reborn. The stellar conclave's judgment chamber had become a storm of chaos. Emergency containment fields sprang up around Rhiannon, their purple energy crackling against her golden aura. But the barriers seemed to pass through her as if she were made of light itself. Fascinating, isn't it? She examined her hand as golden energy continued to dance across her skin. All those years studying alien ruins, and the greatest discovery was hidden in human DNA all along. Impossible. The central judge's avatar expanded, looming over her. We mapped the human genome centuries ago. There was nothing Nothing you recognized, Rhiannon interrupted. Or maybe nothing you wanted to admit was there. Tell me, how many other species have you guided by suppressing their true potential? Before the judges could respond, new alarms blared. A voice echoed through the chamber, multiple unauthorized transmissions detected. Data packets broadcasting on all frequencies. Unable to contain. The lead judge's avatar flickered violently. What have you done? I told you I had evidence. Rhiannon tapped the neural transmitter behind her ear. My death triggered the broadcast. Every human colony, every research station, every independent vessel, they're all receiving proof of your interference right now. including footage of my execution and resurrection. Shouts and commands filled the chamber as the judges tried desperately to contain the situation. But Rhiannon could feel the truth spreading like wildfire across the galaxy. Her neural transmitter was receiving confirmation pings from thousands of locations. The chamber door burst open as heavily armed enforcers poured in, their crystalline weapons trained on Rhiannon. She recognized their commander, a towering Andromedian named Vextor, notorious for hunting down species that violated Conclave law. "On your knees," Vextor commanded, his metallic voice sharp with tension. Rhiannon's response was to let more of the golden energy flow through her. It lifted her gently off the ground, surrounding her in a nimbus of light. "I don't think so. Not anymore." The enforcers opened fire. Energy beams and plasma bolts struck Rhiannon's aura, only to be absorbed into the golden light. She felt no pain, only a surge of power that made her consciousness expand. For a moment, she could sense similar energy patterns scattered across human space, dormant but beginning to stir. "We are not alone," she whispered, wonder in her voice. A new figure appeared in the chamber, a holographic projection of someone Rhiannon had never expected to see. Director Jace Winters of the Human Colonial Authority, his weathered face grave but his eyes burning with controlled fury. "This is an official protest from the Human Coalition," he announced. "We demand an immediate emergency session of the Galactic Council to address these revelations. And Dr. Vale is now under human protection." The lead judge's avatar surged forward. "You overstep, Director. This is an internal conclave matter dash." "An internal matter?" Winter's laugh was harsh. "You executed a human citizen for discovering the truth about your millennium-long suppression of our species. The footage is already spreading across human space. There are riots breaking out on 3 colonial worlds. The Coalition Parliament is in emergency session. This stopped being internal the moment you killed her. And failed to make it stick," Rhiannon added with a slight smile. More alarms sounded. The chamber's sensors were detecting approaching ships, a fleet of human coalition vessels dropping out of hyperspace, led by the massive dreadnought Justice Ascendant. Rhiannon felt a surge of pride. Humanity wasn't taking this lying down. But she could also sense the situation balancing on a knife's edge. If this descended into open conflict. "There's a better way," she said, drawing all eyes to her. "I propose a compromise. The Conclave acknowledges its past actions and agrees to a full investigation by an independent committee. In return, I share what I've learned about this transformation. Because I don't think it's just me. There are others out there, humans with this same potential. Don't you want to understand it before it awakens in them too?" She could see the judges' avatars conferring silently. They knew she was right. If more humans had this ability, trying to maintain the old system of control would be impossible. The lead judge's avatar diminished slightly. "We will consider your proposal. But you will remain in custody dash." "No," Director Winters cut in. "Dr. Vale returns with us. You've lost the right to detain human citizens. We'll establish neutral ground for negotiations." Rhiannon felt a shift in the chamber's energy. The conclave was yielding, though she knew this was only the beginning. As the golden light continued to pulse through her, she sensed more awakening across human space, others like her, their dormant abilities stirring to life. "Director," she said, "we need to establish a research team immediately. And contact anyone showing signs of transformation. This isn't just about uncovering the past anymore, it's about understanding humanity's future." Winters nodded. "Already in progress. We have reports of at least 7 other cases of spontaneous resurrection in the outer colonies. Whatever they tried to suppress in us, it's waking up." The enforcers withdrew, and Rhiannon felt the containment fields disappear. As she prepared to leave with the human delegation, she turned back to the judges one last time. "For millennia, You thought you were protecting the galaxy by keeping species like mine under control. But we never needed protection. We needed the freedom to become what we truly are. She stepped through the chamber doors into a changed galaxy, where the truth was finally breaking free, and humanity was about to discover its true potential. The golden light within her surged with possibility, and she knew that everything, for humans and aliens alike, was about to change forever. Echoes of revolution. The orbital research station Prometheus hung like a silver needle against the violet skies of Kepler 186f. 3 weeks had passed since Rhiannon Vale's resurrection, and the station had become the center of a growing storm. Inside its crystalline observation dome, Rhiannon watched golden energy dance between her fingers as she listened to the latest reports. That makes 13 confirmed cases now, Director Winters said, his hologram pacing the length of the dome. All of them the same pattern, lethal accidents or illnesses, followed by resurrection exactly 43 minutes later. Rhiannon nodded, her dark eyes tracking the swirling nebula visible through the dome. And all of them after my broadcast. The data triggered something dormant in our genetic code. The question is, why now? The third person in the room stepped forward, Dr. Neferu Okafor, Earth's leading xenogeneticist. She was a tall woman with close-cropped silver hair and neural augmentation lines tracing elegant patterns across her dark skin. What made humanity ready for this evolution? Before Rhiannon could respond, alarms blared through the station. A security officer's voice crackled over the comm, unidentified vessels dropping out of hyperspace. Conclave energy signatures detected. Here we go again, Rhiannon muttered. She'd been expecting this, the conclave wouldn't give up control easily. The observation dome smart glass activated, showing tactical displays. 5 conclave warships had appeared, their crystalline hulls gleaming with charged weapons. But something was wrong. Their formation was ragged, as if they'd arrived in a hurry. They're being pursued, Winters noted, his tactical training evident. Look at their engine signatures, they're running from something. As if on cue, space twisted behind the conclave ships. A massive vessel emerged from hyperspace, unlike anything Rhiannon had seen before. Its hull was covered in the same ancient markings she'd discovered in the ruins, glowing with familiar golden energy. That's impossible, she breathed. Those designs, they're from the civilization that tried to help humanity before the conclave interfered. The mysterious ship opened fire, not with conventional weapons but with beams of pure golden light. Where they struck the conclave vessels, the crystalline hulls simply transformed, their molecular structure shifting into something new. Director, the security officer called, we're receiving a transmission from the unknown vessel. They're requesting to speak with the Awakened One. Rhiannon felt the golden energy within her surge in response. Put them through. The holographic display shifted, and Rhiannon found herself face to face with beings that shouldn't exist. They appeared humanoid but seemed to be composed entirely of golden energy, their forms shifting and flowing like liquid light. At last, the lead figure spoke, its voice resonating on frequencies that made the station's crystal walls hum. We have waited so long for your species to break free. Who are you? Rhiannon asked, though part of her already knew the answer. We are what humanity will become, the being replied. We are what the conclave feared, a species that transcended physical form to become pure energy and consciousness. We seeded the potential for this evolution in many species, but the conclave's predecessors feared our influence. They drove us into hiding, established their system of controlled development to prevent others from following our path. Dr. Okafor stepped forward, her augmentations glowing as she scanned the beings. The genetic markers we've been studying, you placed them in our DNA? We gave you the potential, the energy being corrected. But the achievement is yours. Each species must find its own path to transcendence. We only ensure they have the chance. Outside, the transformed conclave ships hung motionless, their crews seemingly unharmed but trapped within crystalline structures that pulsed with golden light. "What happens now?" Director Winters asked, his hologram flickering with tension. The energy being's form expanded, filling the dome with soft golden light. "Now, humanity faces a choice. We offer knowledge, guidance to understand the transformation spreading through your people. But we will not interfere directly. That was our mistake before, the action that gave the Conclave excuse to suppress species development." Rhiannon felt the truth of their words resonating with the power inside her. "The ruins I studied, the technology one found, they weren't weapons or tools, were they? They were teaching aids, meant to help us understand our own potential." "Correct. And now that potential is awakening. But be warned, the Conclave is vast, and many of its members will resist change. They believe their system of control is necessary for galactic stability." As if to emphasize the point, new alarms sounded. More Conclave ships were arriving, along with vessels from other species, some appearing hostile, others seemingly curious or supportive. "They're afraid," Rhiannon realized. "Not just of what humanity might become, but of how our transformation will affect the galaxy's balance of power." The energy being's form pulsed in agreement. "Fear of change is powerful. But fear cannot stop evolution. The choice before humanity now is not whether to change, but how to shepherd that change responsibly." Director Winters' hologram straightened. "Whatever comes, Earth and her colonies stand ready. We've lived under Conclave restrictions for too long." "Then let us begin," the being said. "But first, Dr. Vale, you must complete your own transformation. The power you wield now is just the beginning. Are you prepared to take the next step?" Rhiannon looked at her hands, still flickering with golden energy, then at the assembled ships outside, Conclave, human, and others, all waiting to see what would happen next. In that moment, she felt the weight of history, the responsibility of leading humanity into an uncertain but extraordinary future. "I'm ready," she said, and the golden light within her began to grow. The hidden archives. The transformation had taken 7 days. When Rhiannon Vale emerged from her chrysalis of golden light, she understood why the Conclave had feared this evolution so deeply. Her consciousness now extended beyond physical form, able to perceive the quantum threads that bound reality together. But she had chosen to maintain a humanoid appearance, believing it important to remain a bridge between humanity's past and future. The Prometheus station had become a fortress, protected by a fleet of human ships and their new allies. Dr. Okafor's research team had identified over 100 more potential, awakened, humans, each carrying the dormant genetic markers for transformation. But time was running out. "The Conclave's Grand Archive is mobilizing," Director Winters reported during an emergency meeting. His hologram showed signs of strain, he hadn't slept in days. "They're destroying records, purging entire databases. Everything about their suppression program, about the energy beings who tried to help us, they're erasing it all." Rhiannon's form shimmed with barely contained energy. "They're trying to control the narrative. If we don't preserve that history, future generations will never know the truth. The archive is their most heavily defended installation," said Commander Gene Park of the Human Defense Fleet. "Even with our new allies, a direct assault would be costly." "Then we don't assault it." Everyone turned to look at Thorix, Rhiannon's old research partner. The Proximian had risked everything to defect to humanity's side, bringing valuable intelligence with him. "We infiltrate. I know a way in." Rhiannon sensed his fear, but also his determination. "Tell me." "The archive isn't just a database, it's a quantum storage system that exists partially outside normal spacetime. That's how they've preserved records for millions of years. But that same system requires massive energy conduits running through normal space. Conduits that need maintenance." Understanding dawned on Rhiannon's luminous face. Maintenance tunnels. Big enough for a small team to slip through. Exactly. Thorax's scales shifted to a determined blue. I can get us past the outer security rings. But the inner defenses? Leave those to me. Rhiannon turned to the others. I'll need a small team. People I can protect if things go wrong. Commander Park stepped forward. My best stealth operators are at your disposal. I'm coming too, Dr. Okafor said firmly. Those archives likely contain genetic research we'll need to help others through their transformations. The plan came together quickly. While the human fleet launched a diversionary attack on a nearby conclave outpost, Rhiannon's team would slip into the archive through Thorax's maintenance tunnels. But as they prepared to depart, an unexpected visitor arrived. One of the energy beings materialized in the station's command center, its golden form more focused than before. We've detected unusual activity within the archive. The conclave isn't just destroying records, they're accessing sealed vaults that haven't been opened in millennia. Looking for weapons? Commander Park suggested. Worse. We believe they're accessing records of failed evolutionary experiments. Species that began to transcend but lost control of their transformations. The results were catastrophic. Rhiannon felt a chill despite her energy form. They'll use those examples to justify their suppression. Claim they were protecting the galaxy all along. Which is why you must hurry, the being urged. But be warned, the archive holds dangers even we don't fully understand. Ancient technologies, trapped energy beings driven mad by millennia of imprisonment, temporal anomalies. No turning back now, Rhiannon said. Humanity needs this knowledge, needs to understand both the potential and the dangers of what we're becoming. The infiltration began at the dark edge of the archive's stellar system. Their stealth ship, masked by experimental quantum camouflage, slipped past the outer sensor rings. Rhiannon could sense the massive structure ahead, a sphere of impossible scale, its surface covered in crystalline data nodes that pulsed with stored information. As they approached the maintenance access point, she gathered her team, Dr. Okafor with her advanced neural interfaces, Commander Park's twin stealth operatives Kai and Rin, and Thorix leading the way. Rhiannon's golden energy enveloped them all, extending her quantum awareness to shield them from detection. The maintenance tunnel was a tight fit, barely large enough for them to crawl through single file. But Rhiannon could sense something vast and ancient stirring in the archive's depths. The conclave wasn't just hiding history, they were protecting something that challenged their entire understanding of reality. Security drones ahead, Thorix whispered, his scales shifting to warning red. Rhiannon reached out with her consciousness, touching the drone's quantum processors. With a soft pulse of golden light, she rewrote their patrol patterns, creating a blind spot for the team to slip through. They emerged into a vast chamber filled with crystalline data cores stretching to infinity. Dr. Okafor's augments immediately began scanning, copying everything they could access. But Rhiannon's attention was drawn to something deeper, a resonance that called to the energy being within her. There's another layer, she realized. The physical archives are just a facade. The real knowledge, the dangerous secrets, they're stored in quantum space, accessible only to beings who've transcended physical form. As if in response to her words, alarms began to blare. The archive's AI had detected her quantum probing. And in the depths of the installation, something ancient and powerful had awakened, something that would change everyone's understanding of both humanity's potential and the true nature of the conclave's fear. Breaking chains. The heart of the Grand Archive pulsed with ancient power. As alarms blared through the crystalline corridors, Rhiannon Vale pushed her consciousness deeper into the quantum realm, where the conclave's most terrifying secrets lay hidden. What she found there stopped her cold. By all the stars, she whispered. They're not just preserving history. They're preserving beings. The quantum space before her contained thousands of energy signatures, each one a preserved consciousness. Some were clearly like the transcended beings who had helped humanity, but others were different, fragments of species that had attempted ascension and failed, kept in eternal stasis. Dr. Vale. Dr. Okafor's voice pulled her back to physical reality. The archive's defenses are activating. We've got multiple containment fields closing in. Through the crystalline walls, Rhiannon could sense conclave forces converging on their position. But more worrying was the ancient presence stirring beneath them, awakened by her quantum probing. "Thorix," she called to her friend, "what do you know about the archive's lowest levels?" The Proximian scales had gone ash-gray with fear. "They're forbidden. Even to most of the conclave. There are stories." A deep tremor ran through the structure, and Rhiannon felt a vast consciousness brush against her own. Ancient. Angry. Imprisoned. "It's a guardian," came a familiar resonant voice. One of the transcended beings materialized beside them, its golden form flickering with urgency. "A member of our kind who chose to remain behind, to watch over those who failed to ascend properly. But millennia of isolation have changed it. And now we've woken it up," Commander Park's operative Kai said grimly, checking his quantum disruptor rifle. The tremors increased. Through the archive's quantum structure, Rhiannon could feel the Guardian rising, its power dwarfing anything she had yet encountered. But she also sensed something else in its ancient mind, loneliness, and a desperate desire to prevent others from suffering the fate of those it watched over. That's why the Conclave built their archive here, she realized. They're not just using the Guardian as a defense system. They've been using its fear, its trauma, to justify their suppression of other species. "Incoming!" Rin shouted as crystalline walls shattered around them. Conclave enforcement troops poured in, led by the familiar figure of Vextor. "Step away from the quantum cores," the Andromedian commander ordered. "You cannot comprehend the dangers contained here." Rhiannon's response was to flare with golden light, shielding her team. "No, Vextor. You're the ones who never comprehended. The Guardian wasn't meant to be a jailer. It was meant to be a teacher." She extended her consciousness toward the vast presence below, no longer trying to hide or fight. "Show me," she projected into the quantum realm. "Show me what really happened." The Guardian's response was overwhelming. Images flooded Rhiannon's mind, the early days of galactic civilization, the first species attempting transcendence. Some succeeded, becoming beings of pure energy and thought. Others lost themselves in the process, their consciousness fragmenting. The Guardian had stayed behind to study what went wrong, to find a way to help future species avoid the same fate. But the precursors of the Conclave had seen only the failures. They had imprisoned the Guardian, used its research to justify their system of controlled development. What was meant to be a sanctuary for learning had become a prison of fear. Enough. Rhiannon's voice echoed with new power as she pushed the truth into every mind present, human, conclave, and transcended alike. The Guardian wasn't warning us to stop evolving. It was trying to show us how to evolve safely. The Guardian's consciousness surged upward, breaking free of restraints that had held it for millions of years. But instead of the destructive force the Conclave feared, it emerged as a being of pure golden light, its ancient knowledge flowing outward. Vextor and his troops stumbled back as the Guardian's wisdom washed over them. Rhiannon felt the change in their quantum signatures as understanding replaced fear. The archive itself seemed to pulse in response, its crystalline structures resonating with long-suppressed truth. "It's time to end this cycle of fear," Rhiannon announced, her voice carrying to every corner of the facility. "Humanity isn't the first species to face the challenges of transcendence, and we won't be the last. But we refuse to let fear stop us from reaching our full potential." Dr. Okafor's neural augments were practically smoking as they absorbed the Guardian's data. "This changes everything. The genetic markers, the resurrection phenomenon, they're not just random mutations. They're safety protocols, evolutionary guidelines encoded into our DNA by species who successfully transcended before us. The transcended being who had accompanied them pulsed with approval. Now you understand. Each species' path to evolution is unique, but the fundamental principles remain the same. Balance. Control. Understanding. The conclave's mistake was trying to prevent change instead of guiding it. Throughout the archive, more stasis fields were falling. The preserved consciousness fragments were finally being released, not as threats to be contained, but as lessons to be learned from. Rhiannon could feel the change rippling out through quantum space, touching minds across the galaxy. The question, she said, turning to Vextor, is whether the conclave is ready to change too. To become teachers and guides instead of jailers. The Andromedian commander looked around at his troops, then at the golden light filling the chamber. Slowly, he lowered his weapon. We will need help understanding this new path. Then let us help each other, Rhiannon replied, extending her hand. Human, conclave, transcended, we all have something to learn and something to teach. As the Guardian's light spread through the archive, Rhiannon felt the future shifting. Humanity's transformation had become a catalyst, not just for their own evolution, but for the entire galaxy's growth. The age of suppression was ending. The age of transcendence was about to begin. And somewhere in the quantum realm, she sensed other species stirring, their own dormant potential beginning to wake. The next chapter in galactic history would be written not in fear, but in the golden light of possibility.